So today we're going to talk all about internal conflicts because I think it's something that most of us don't talk about or we don't even realize it's affecting us. So here's an example. We're men, we like to fix things, we see a problem, we want to, attack it right away, make it better, make it smaller, move on. But the problem is, what happens when the problem isn't outside of us? We see a problem, we try to do actions, we try to do more strategies, we try to, move around it, work around it, push harder. But have you ever been trying to do it over and over and over again and it just feels like you're banging your head against the wall? Well, why is that? Well, that's because there's these sneaky little things called internal conflicts and self-sabotage that's holding you back. So today, the topic is called it's you versus you. It's not you versus anybody else. It's you versus you because that's really where the game is played. That's why it's called self-mastery for men. You got to master yourself to be able to win the game of life, right? But it's you versus you, and it's how to identify and resolve the internal conflicts holding you back from really getting what you want to get and becoming who you really want to become. So I put together a little Google Doc for you, and I'll be able to share it with you, and that way you guys can see exactly what we're talking about, follow along. So let me pull this document up and give me like a little thumbs up or a little heart emoji, like just tap that if you guys can see this okay. I'm doing this on Zoom because Facebook Live, I can't figure out how to use Google Doc on Facebook, so I'm going through Zoom, routing it into Facebook. Just give me a little thumbs up or heart if you can see it okay. All right, sweet. So like I told you, this is called You versus You, How to Resolve Internal Conflicts and Self-Sabotage. Check for a moment and really be honest with yourself. Let me know if this is you. Have you ever been highly motivated to do something? You got to do it. You're motivated to do it. You start doing it even, and then your motivation just stops out of nowhere. You start doing it, plateau hits, bam, motivation's gone. You have no idea why. Has that ever happened to you? Comment below if that's you. Or have you ever known the right thing to do, but for whatever reason, you just can't seem to get yourself to do it? You know it, you got to do it, but it's like a force of will to get yourself going, right? Has that ever happened to you as well? Or how about this? Have you ever felt stuck between two things? And I'll explain to you what I mean. Sometimes you might feel like a part of me wants to do this or a part of me wants to do that, but another part of me also kind of doesn't. And it's like a tug of war internally. And it's like push pull, do I, don't I? And it's like it's a struggle in here. You're internally conflicted, which is the whole topic of this thing. Have you ever felt that before? Right? It might also sound like, on one hand, I want to do this, but on the other hand, I want to do that. Right? Or how about this one? Have you ever had a repeating pattern where you can get motivated, but only when it seems like the world is falling down around you? There's some catastrophe that makes you finally have to make a move. Things have to get so bad that you finally say, that's it, enough, I'm done. And then you finally make a move, right? But it takes everything for you to do that. I hear that all the time. People I work with, or people reach out to me and they say, hey man, like, I don't want it to have to get this bad before I make a change. Because they're like, it has to get to rock bottom before they get motivated to do anything. They don't want to be that way, but they're not consciously choosing that, right? It's like it's self-sabotage. It's an internal conflict. They're not aware of why that's happening. So if that's you, like maybe you don't want to, wait until it gets to be a catastrophe as well, right? But the challenge here is what I told you in the beginning. Most people, especially men, what do? We try harder, we double down, we bang our head against the wall, we try to solve it, we try to add more habits, we try to do more morning routines. Doesn't seem to work, and they have no idea what's actually going on. And they're just banging their head against the wall. And the reason why is because it's what's going on internally. It's an internal conflict there. And what it feels like is the more you try, the more you feel like you're spinning your wheels. It's like the more you spin your wheels, the more you're stuck in the mud. It's like quicksand. I put down here, it reminds me of a finger trap. Have you ever played with a finger trap when you were a kid? It's like the harder you try to pull, the more you're stuck. Do you know what I mean? So that's what these can be sometimes. The more you fight against it, the more tightly they hold on to you. So what's really going on here? Well, I want to share with you, like, one of the first things as we get into this, there's no judgment here. If this is you, that's totally normal. That means you're human. Okay. I have been through every single one of these, and that's how I can speak so in depth about them, right? Because this is coming from my own personal experience. I was the most stuck guy you could ever imagine. I'll tell you my story a little bit later. But people ask me, how did you turn everything around? It wasn't through doing more habits. It wasn't through working hard. I mean, I worked hard. Like I had to go to the gym, I had to, go to work. I had to save money and things like that. But really, the crux of what was able to turn me around from 80 pounds overweight, significantly almost six figures in debt, turning my finances around, turning my health around. I was in like basically my ex marriage was very, very toxic. She was an alcoholic. She was addicted. Got out of that, turned around my masculinity. I'm in a great relationship now, like really owning myself, right? But how did I do that? It wasn't through like forcing things. I tried to force for years, it never worked. That's why I finally said, I got to figure this out, right? What really solved it was resolving all these internal conflicts because everything suddenly became aligned. Does that make sense? So if you can identify what your internal conflicts are, you'll be able to have that same result. Where maybe it's not the same things that I did, but for you, maybe it's the progress that you make. You're finally going to be aligned, and it's not going to be two steps forward, one step back, but everything is like full tilt, full cylinder. Everything's firing the way it needs to fire, right? It's going to feel like, like I said, you're going to have to put effort in to get the results that you want, but it's going to feel like effortless effort, right? You're not going to be fighting against yourself anymore. And I think that's what we all want. So, what are these internal conflicts? Internal conflict, self sabotage, it's when you have an internal struggle going on in your mind. And it shows up when you have opposite desires, opposite beliefs, opposite needs, even conflicting emotions sometimes. That can be in there. But there's three types of internal conflicts that I found. So there's three types of internal conflicts. The first one is, I call it a parts conflict. And a parts conflict is when you have, it's like there's two opposing inner forces inside of you. Okay. And it shows up as like you're like a contradiction almost. Like there's an internal contradiction. You hear people say all the time, a part of me wants X, but a part of me also wants Y. I'll give you some practical examples of that. Another way you can tell in the language really easy. They'll say, on one hand, this is what I want, but on the other hand, kind of want to do that instead. Right? So it's a tug of war. You're stuck between two things, and it's usually not just two options. There is options externally, but really what's going on is it's like a crisis of identity. Does that make sense? It's like who are you being? I'll give you some more examples in a minute. The second type of internal conflict is a values conflict. Now, we should probably define what a value is. A value is something that you put very highly on your list of things that are important. We don't always know what they are consciously, right? But if I ask you what they were, you would know, right? So people value things like success, love, happiness, family, health. They value these things. But what happens when you have two opposing values? They show up as moral dilemmas, right? Or they show up as competing choices or competing loyalties or competing desires. This isn't internal. When I say isn't, it is not internal, meaning it's not like there's two different parts of your personality or identity like fighting for control. This is more like you're stuck between options or things that you really value highly. So people might say, hey, I'm torn between these two things. I want to do this, but also I'm feeling like I'm held back by that. I don't know what to do. They got like these competing loyalties. I'll share with you more in a moment what I mean. We'll get into more depth in a second. But number three is a motivation conflict. And a motivation conflict is when the thing that you want and then your external behavior, external results don't match. So you want something, you might even be going for it, but you're going for it, but your results are going off to the side, or you're self-sabotaging, or you're plateauing, or you're hitting the glass ceiling. And this shows up as inconsistency in your results. So it's going to show up as 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or sometimes even 3 steps back, right? It's going to show up as bursts of motivation where you get super highly motivated, super like ready to go. And all of a sudden your motivation just suddenly stops, like out of nowhere. And then you're going to hear people say, hey, I don't get motivated until things really get bad. It's like, you procrastinate. Then it's like, you got to make a choice. You got to do something. You finally do it. Or you knew you had to do it for a while, but you didn't make the change happen until like everything was burning down around you, right? I just can't seem to get going. Or I just self-sabotage myself, or I just can't seem to get motivated. That's what a motivation conflict is. I'm going to share more in a moment. We'll get in depth. But real quick, comment below. First of all, is this starting to make sense to you? And number two, which of these can you start to identify might be going on? So just comment in the chat. Is this starting to make sense to you? And which of these might you be able to identify as going on either now or in the past? Okay. So now how do these things happen? And what's really going on? Right, so we're gonna go through them. Number one, a parts conflict. I like to consider that like a conflict of your internal identity. And it's almost like, and this is what it's gonna feel like to you. It's like there's two different parts of yourself fighting for control. They're playing tug of war. So like there's this really confident version of you there, but there's also the shy version of you. And you know you can be confident, but not all the time. And it's kind of fighting for control, right? There's like an internal battle going on. It affects your behavior, of course, right? Because if you're confident versus shy, you're going to be one foot on the gas, one foot on the brake at the same time, simultaneously. But it's really less about the behavior, more about who you're being. It's more about your identity. So, for example, if you want to do an exercise program, it might be, a part of me wants to be a healthy person, a part of me wants to go to the gym, but another part of me is kind of lazy. I want to stay home. So it has to do with behavior, but also it has to do more with like who you're being and your identity. Do you follow me so far? All right. So I'll give you some examples. We talked about confidence versus shy. This might be, let's just say, you have the nice guy syndrome, like in the book No More Mr. Nice Guy, Dr. Robert Glover, right? Great book. Highly recommended if you haven't read it before. But somebody might say, hey, I'm tired of being taken advantage of in my relationships. I let people walk all over me. So I'm tired of being a nice guy. But then on the other hand, I don't want to be a jerk either, right? So there's this internal conflict of how should I show up? And I've worked with people before where they start to notice like they're being kind of nice and they're letting their spouse or their partner, the significant other, walk all over them, and then they pendulum to the other side, and they start to become kind of a jerk or really more aggressive or dominant, and then they go, oh no, I don't want to be like that, and they go back to the other side. And so that's an internal conflict of parts, right? There's a parts conflict. Part of me wants to be, doesn't want to be this way, but I don't want to be that way either. So you're stuck in the middle. Or it might show up, let's give you an example in business, a part of me wants to have my own business. A part of me, I'm an entrepreneur, but also I'm afraid to fail. Part of me is afraid to fail. So there's push pull of identities. Maybe you had a business in the past that didn't work. So you identify as wanting to be this business owner, successful guy, but you also identify as the part of you that tried it before and failed. So now it's like there's a part of you trying to get you to not do it to keep you safe. You see what I mean? Comment below if this is starting to resonate with you. You hear it all the time, and you can tell in the language. And when I'm chatting with people, this is what I can find out. They do it unconsciously, just comes right out in the language. They'll say, hey, a part of me wants this, but a part of me doesn't. I go, oh, there's a parts conflict. We got to fix that, right? Or they'll say, hey, on one hand, this is what's going on, but on the other hand, also this. So that you're flip flopping between two different versions of yourself, right? And you have these two different sides of your personality arguing over what to do. It's kind of like a negotiation, right? So the way to solve that is we got to figure out what's the highest intent of all of those things, right? Because every behavior that you do has a higher intent, even the things that seem counterintuitive. And so you got to treat these different versions of yourself, these different parts, like a negotiation. Like, so there's two opposing sides if you're in a negotiation. Well, what do you both want, and how do we meet in the middle? That's how you get rid of those, right? I've had to do a bunch of these on myself. I've done a bunch of these with people that I work with. When you finally resolve this, what's going to end up happening is you're going to feel like a whole person. You're going to feel much more authentic, much more aligned. You're going to feel like the person you're meant to be, because there's not going to be so many different, you're a different way with different groups of people. You're one way at work, you're one way at school, you're one way at church, if that's what you go to. You're one way with your friends, you're one way with your parents, you're one way with your spouse, all these different things. You might even be one way when you're dating someone and then be a different way when you're married. There's a switch that happens, isn't there? Right, between dating and marriage. So you have these different versions of yourself that you access at all times. And if they stay fractured, if they stay like, I'm only this way here, only that way there, you don't feel like you're being your full self. Do you know what I mean? So what I really do with people and what I've done with myself is I made sure that I align all these different parts of myself. So that way I'm not fighting internally. I'm not having an internal battle anymore. I'm just, full speed ahead. Everything's in alignment. Does that make sense? So that's a parts conflict. Comment below, what's the number one takeaway that you got from this section here about parts conflicts? And where might this be showing up in your life either now or in the past? So comment below what's resonating with you about these parts conflicts, and how might this be affecting your life either now or in the past? Cool. Give you guys a second or two to do that. And now we're going to talk about values conflict. So what is a values conflict? This is a conflict of what's most important to you in life, or not even just in life, but in a specific category. So it could be what's important to you in life. It could be what's important to you in career. It could be what's important to you in relationships, right? But these show up as moral dilemmas, or they're competing choices or loyalties. This isn't necessarily an identity. Part of me wants this, part of me wants that. This is competing values, competing what's most important to you in your life. So I'll give you a few different examples. Let's say someone has a value of family versus career. We're going to go here in life values. Someone values family, and they also value their career. Now, here's the thing. Everybody on this Zoom call, everybody on this Facebook Live might value family, or might value career, or might value love, or might value something. We all might have the same values, but how you define it is different. The Facebook group has over 1,000 people right now. It's one of the fastest growing groups for men's personal development and authentic masculinity. It's fantastic. But if I polled the group, everybody would say that they value love, or mostly everybody. But if I asked the definition, everybody's definition of it would be slightly different. Does that make sense? And that's where the values conflict come in. So let's say you value family and you also value career. But then I ask, well, what does family mean to you? And let's say for this individual we're making up here, family means love, but it's a happy home life. It means spending time with kids. It means plenty of alone time, plenty of quality time, being home at a certain hour, being able to take your kids to school, all these different things, right? Being able to go on date night all the time, like really having that quality time with your family. And then they also value career. And then you ask, what does career mean to you? Well, it means success, financial freedom, my mission, working hard. It also means putting in late hours, working 80 hours a week, doing whatever it takes, traveling if I have to, right? Being on call, always being available. Can you see how those things might have a conflict there? Right? There's a push-pull, and it's not internally, it's in what they value most in terms of importance. So that can create a conflict. What about a value in career? Where in career themselves, let's say, make up an example. Let's say you want to start a business for yourself, and you've been working at a full-time job. You want to start this business for yourself, and it's a push-pull. I want to do it. Also, I kind of don't. But it's not an identity thing, right? Maybe you've never failed at business before, so it's not like the part of me that failed is trying to keep me safe. Maybe it's like you just never done it before, and so there's some fear there. So your career value, number one, is you value security, because you want to make sure that you work at your job. You want to make sure you save money. You want to make sure that you're consistent. You want to make sure you have a safety net. But then also you value your freedom, meaning you want to be able to do whatever you want, whenever you want. You don't want to have anybody be your boss, right? So you have this value of security, meaning the safe, stable thing, but you also have this value of freedom and being an entrepreneur. Do you think those things can cause a little bit of internal struggle for you? Yeah. Do you think it would cause a little or a lot? What do you think would happen to somebody who has those values, as security and then also freedom simultaneously? What would happen to them when they're at their job and they try to start their business? Would they do it quickly? Would they do it right away, or would they kind of drag it out for years, right? I'm speaking from personal experience, by the way. I'm speaking from personal experience with all of these different things. There's no judgment here. I have literally experienced all of these things that I'm sharing with you. So that's how I know I can help you out. Let's take a look at relationship values specifically. Let's say that you value having a healthy relationship. I would assume that we do. And then you also value loyalty. Loyalty of yourself, loyalty of your partner. Loyalty is a good value to have in a relationship. So having a healthy relationship and having loyalty seems like a good thing to have in a relationship, right? But check this out. I put a little note here, and this is a true story. What if you value having a healthy relationship, but your wife is an addict and is addicted to alcohol and is in and out of rehab multiple times and tries and fails and tries and fails, and it's just getting worse and worse, and like some random stuff is happening. It's like really unhealthy behavior, right? Well, you would just say it's probably best, you love them, but cut your losses and move on. It's not a healthy environment to be in, especially if there's no kids, right? But what if your second value is loyalty? And not just loyalty, but what if your value is loyalty because you never want to abandon anybody because you were adopted at birth and you know what it feels like to be given up by somebody. That was my story. And so, what do you think the internal struggle would be by really highly valuing a healthy relationship and knowing the relationship you're in is not healthy, but then also valuing loyalty so high to the point where I never want to abandon anybody? I can't do that to somebody. You think that would cause a little bit of stress or a lot of stress? Do you think that person would have a really easy time moving on? Or do you think it would drag out? Do you think he would do everything possible and almost go down with the ship? Can you see how these things start to work, right? And that's my personal example. But now these are only two different values. You have in your life 5, 10, 15 values for each category, right? So imagine if you're in a situation where you have all these different things that you want and they're all conflicting. This is why people come to me and they go, I know what I want, but I'm going this way, but then also I'm going that way. Like I'm all over the place. I'm self-sabotaging. The reason why is because there's an unconscious conflict in the values. So one of the first things I do with people is I get really clear. I say, okay, what do you value most in life? Or if it's for health, I say, what do you value in health? I go, what do you value in your relationships? And then what we do together is we identify all of the conflicts and the values. Because this is my take on it. There are people that go out there, they invest $10,000 plus in the coaching programs, right? And they give you the strategy on how to do it. But what happens? The people don't take action and they don't get the results. Why? Because they have all these internal conflicts and values that are holding them back. My philosophy now is like, if we're going to help anybody, like we've got to make sure that there's no internal conflicts, there's no values that are out of alignment, right? And so once you align these though, and there's a very specific way to do it. When you align it, everything cascades, everything falls into place. Your work will support your family. Your relationship will support your health. Your security is going to support your freedom, or your freedom will bring you security. All of the values align. So imagine what happens when all of a sudden your internal parts conflicts, you're no longer, different versions of yourself and, push, pull, and you're aligned as a human being in your identity. And then you don't have any more conflicts in your values in terms of, what's most important. It all aligns. Can you see how this starts to get someone to move forward? Does that make sense? This is a lot of what I do with people to help them get unstuck from the situation that they're in. So comment below, what's the number one takeaway you're getting from the values conflict section? And where might you be experiencing a values conflict either now or in the past? So just take a moment, comment below, love to read them. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to go down. We've got one more category of internal conflicts. And this is called the motivation conflict. This is a big one. This happens in all areas of life. This happens with the people that I work with that are the most successful 6, 7-figure entrepreneurs. This works with people that are just trying to figure it out and are trying to get their life back on track. This is a big one for people because once they get this, the light bulb goes off and they go, this is why I'm stuck. Happens in so many different cases. I'm going to explain to you what it means. This is when you have a goal, you have an outcome, and you'll start it, but the results don't match. You start going one way and then all of a sudden you're off track and you have no idea why. This will come across like you have an invisible ceiling. I've heard the metaphor where there's an invisible air conditioning. So you're set to 65 degrees, which is your weight, which is your finances, which is your money, which is something, the amount of love you can receive in a relationship, things like that. And you get right to the threshold of it, and then you get a little bit above it. And what happens? The coolers kick on, or the air conditioner kicks on and brings you right back down to what you're used to. There's like an invisible ceiling. You can't get past it. That's what this motivation conflict is. It's also going to seem like you start to get what you want, and then your motivation completely dies out. And this is also what happens when it takes people forever to get going, or it's almost like the world has to fall down around them before they get moving. This is the reason why. So in your values, so we'll go back up here. Let's say you value, in life, let's say you value your health. And I think everybody would value health in some way. Health is a good value to have. But there's a motivation as to why you would value your health. Hear me on this. There's a motivation as to why you would value your health. And there's something called towards motivation, and there's something called away from motivation. So there's towards motivation and away from motivation. It's sneaky. and I want to point this out to you. Towards motivation is you move towards doing that thing, you move towards your health, you move towards exercise because you actually love to do it and it makes you feel good. It's part of who you are. All right. But then there's a way from motivation where you're doing it because you're actually trying to avoid or escape the pain of not having it. You're trying to avoid the pain of the opposite. Does that make sense? So I'm going to give you an example. We're going to stick with health. Let's say your value for health is you want to get in shape. Now hear this. What if the reason why you want to get in shape was because, I'm tired of being fat. I'm sick of not being able to fit in these clothes anymore. I know if I don't get in shape, I'm not going to be healthy. My girlfriend doesn't like to look at me anymore. She's not attracted to me. I got to make a change. My doctor told me if I don't lose 10 pounds, it's going to really affect my health. I don't want that to happen, right? Listen to that. And now watch the difference here. What if the example was, hey, I really value getting in shape because I love to work out. My health is my power. My health is my wealth. I love looking and feeling great. I love looking and feeling my best. I want to make the most of my life. I want to keep up with my kids. I just want to see what's possible for myself. I really want to, I value energy and vitality. I want to look and feel my best internally. I want to have energy. Do you feel the difference there between that? Which do you think? Comment below example 1 or example 2. Away from is number 1 or towards is number 2. Who do you think is going to have the better time and the easier time? Number 1, achieving the outcome, and number 2, maintaining it long term. Let's comment below. Who do you think is going to have the easier time with this? 100% number 2. And this is why when people, they start an exercise program, they'll get to a certain point, the motivation stops, and they'll gain the weight back, or they'll plateau. Because you're moving away from, which means you're moving away from the pain of feeling like you're heavy or feeling overweight, or you're moving away from the pain of looking a certain way. So what happens is you do just enough to get out of the pain. You're out of the threshold of that pain. And then once you cross the pain barrier, your body goes, oh, cool, I'm done. Motivation turns off and you plateau right there. If you're not careful, you go back. And you'll keep going back until you hit the threshold again. You go, wait a minute, no, there's too much pain here. And then you start to push again. That's why this keeps happening. Do you follow me? I'll give you another example. Let's talk about finances or money. I think everybody would like to have more finances, more money, more financial freedom. Even if you're at a great level, there's another level for you. So let's say you want to generate revenue, make more money. But the reason is because my family never had money growing up. Money's always been an issue for me. I don't want to feel like I'm in poverty. I'm tired of living paycheck to paycheck. I don't want to live like this anymore. I want to finally make what I'm worth and prove everybody wrong. It's a powerful motivator, right? But is that moving towards or away from? Are they moving away from what they don't want or towards what they want? Now watch this. Let's do the opposite. I want to generate revenue and make more money because I love adding value to my clients. I love business. I love providing great experiences for my family. I want to set myself up and my family nicely for retirement. I want to go on trips. I want to build a legacy. I want to take care of my kids' college. I want to see what I'm capable of and pushing myself to see what's possible. I want to see what my limits are, right? Is that moving towards or away from? Yeah, he's moving towards what he wants. So I'm going to ask you again, which one of these 2 examples do you think is going to have the easier time achieving and maintaining his outcomes? Yeah, it's going to be number 2, the one moving towards. This happens at every level. This happens with people where they're really in a funk and they're trying to get going and they can't seem to get it to work. It's because they're moving away from the reasons why. They're trying to get out of pain. Right? We got to switch the motivation. This works with 6 or 7 figure entrepreneurs. I was talking to a guy, highly successful in almost every area of life that you can think of. He hit that plateau. He hit the ceiling, the glass ceiling. And he's trying to figure out why. He's like, I'm doing all the right things. Why am I not able to push past this level? And we did the check on his motivation. All of the motivation was because when he was growing up, he lived in the poor part of town. He lived in poverty. And his motivation was, I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be where I was. So he achieved massive amounts of success. He's a great guy too, by the way. He achieved massive amounts of wealth, success, notoriety, right? But he couldn't get to what was possible for him. And it was because all of his motivation was moving away from, I don't want to be a failure. I don't want to not do a good job at this. I don't want to be in poverty. That was the motivation why. Does that make sense? So once we flip the motivation, everything aligned. So comment below, where do you think motivation conflict may be at play in your life, either now or in the past? And what's your biggest takeaway from this section? So comment below, where do you think motivation conflict may be affecting you now or in the past? And what's been your biggest takeaway from this? I'll give you guys a minute. All right, so comment below. We'll kind of do like a whole overview of this. What types of internal conflicts do you struggle with the most right now? Like currently, which types of internal conflicts do you struggle with the most right now? And tell me, what do you need to do to resolve it, or why must you resolve it? So what types of internal conflicts do you struggle with the most right now? And then what do you need to do to resolve it, or why must you resolve it? What types of internal conflicts do you struggle with the most right now? And what do you need to do, or why do you need to resolve it right now? And then comment overall, what's your biggest takeaway from this little mini lesson here today? And if you guys want some help with this, if you want some help with this sincerely, I'm an open book. My door's wide open. I love helping people with this sincerely. This is my passion in life. I've dedicated my life to helping men overcome this because this is what was holding me back. Does that make sense? And so I made a promise. So I said, if I can figure this out for myself, I'm going to figure this out so I can help other people. And people ask me when I talk to them, they go, hey, we've seen the results that you've had in your life. We see the results that other people had in their life, but I don't understand how it's possible, right? Like, did you do more habits? Did you like do a morning routine? Like, I've tried all the personal development stuff. I've listened to all the books. I've listened to all the tapes. I listen to stuff in my car. I've tried to motivate myself. I can't seem to get it to work. And they think it's because like I got these results because I pushed harder or worked harder or tried harder than everybody else. I tried that. I pushed for years, more than anybody even would care to know. I kept pushing and I kept self-sabotaging, and I just couldn't seem to. It was like I was in the ocean and the waves kept knocking me down. That's what I felt like. I couldn't catch a break. And so people are surprised to know I didn't achieve any level of success or turn my life around because I did more things. It was actually addition by subtraction. I looked and I found, well, where are all my internal conflicts? Where am I at? Where am I at conflict with myself and my parts? Where is my values misaligned? Where's my motivations out of whack? And I just did a really great job of aligning, my identity, my values, aligning my motivation. And then once everything aligns, guys, it's like, it's not push pull. It's not 3 steps forward, 5 steps back. It's all of a sudden you start to make the progress that you get. People tell me so often, they go, I just want to feel like I get the result for the amount of work I put in. You ever feel like that? Like you put in so much work and it's not even that you get some result. It's like you don't even get any result for the hard work you're putting in. People just want to get an appropriate amount of result and success for the amount of work they're willing to put in. And it's so difficult to do that. And it doesn't have to be. When you align all of these things together, you're still going to have to, and I'm going to be totally upfront with you guys. You're going to have to go to the gym if you want to get in shape. You're going to have to watch what you eat. You're going to have to lift weights, right? That's how you do it. If you want to make more money, you're going to have to work at a job. You're going to have to save money. You're going to have to create a business, or you're going to have to work something. You're going to have to do something for it. If you want a relationship, you're going to learn the tools to have a healthy relationship. It doesn't just happen overnight. But if you align the internal conflicts, it's not effort. Imagine what would happen if all of a sudden all of your internal conflicts, all your self-sabotage didn't exist anymore. And when you had a goal, your mind, your body, your heart, your soul, everything is aligned to it, and you're not like kicking yourself in the shins. Do you know what I mean? That is what is going to be able to help you make the progress. That's what I did. So if you guys want any help with this at all, comment below. Comment below, I'm in, or let's do this, or let's chat, something, I'll see it. And real casual, I'll reach out to you. I'll direct message you either tonight, tomorrow, whenever I see it, and we'll just talk on direct message DM. And if it's something I can help you with, I'll let you know. And if not, no big deal. We can part ways as friends, and you're welcome to just chill out in the group and watch all the stuff, right? And if you want some help with it, comment below. Comment, hey, let's chat, let's do this. I'm interested. And I'll reach out and we'll have a little conversation and see if I can help you align these things so you can get the results you want. And that's it for today. So it was great chatting with you guys. Great having this little session with you. We're gonna be doing more of these, so stay tuned in the group. I'm so thrilled, guys. This has been the fastest growing group for men's personal development and authentic masculinity. And it's so great to see all you guys in the group and contributing and posting and helping each other out. And one thing is, I noticed none of you guys, not one of you guys, are bitter. I don't see anybody blaming. Like, everybody's really here to take personal accountability and become the best version of themselves they can be. So my hat's off to you guys for being here. And like I said, you need help, comment below. Hope you enjoyed it. This is Jared with Self Mastery for Men. I will see you next time. See you later.